Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a story that honestly feels like it was pulled straight from the Twilight Zone. Yet, it's captured the endless fascination of millions worldwide. We're talking about a dark, truly cinematic aviation mystery that bends our very understanding of reality and physics. We're diving deep into the chilling legend of Flight 914.
Imagine boarding a routine flight and landing 37 years later. Just let that absolute impossibility hang in the air for a second. Think about it. You find your designated seat, the engines hum to life, everything is perfectly, completely normal. But when your wheels finally touch the tarmac again, your family has aged decades, the world as you knew it has completely moved on, and for everyone else, well, you and your flight vanished almost 40 years ago.
Okay, let's dive into this. Part 1. A normal flight, New York to Miami, 1955.
So, the story starts on what was, by all accounts, a beautiful, bright summer morning. You've got businessmen reviewing documents, families chatting excitedly, kids pressing their faces against the glass. Just a perfectly ordinary commercial flight getting ready for a routine trip down the East Coast. Boarding in New York goes without a single hitch, the captain completes his standard checks, and they take off right on schedule, exactly at 9:55 a.m. For the first 30 minutes, it's incredibly smooth sailing. Honestly, nobody on board has any idea history is about to be made. But then, the sky abruptly changes. The crew spots a strange cloud formation dead ahead. It wasn't dark and it didn't look like a storm. It was just deeply unusual. And before the captain could even attempt to change course, the aircraft plunged right into it.
And here is where the sheer terror sets in. Once inside that cloud, absolute sensory chaos erupted in the cockpit. The cabin lights just began to flicker violently. The radios, which were perfectly clear a minute ago, were instantly overwhelmed by this deafening static. Navigational compasses spinning wildly, completely out of control. And then, as quickly as the chaos started, complete and total silence.
Part 2. The missing aircraft. The search for answers. Down on the ground, air traffic controllers immediately lost contact. Desperate calls were met with absolutely nothing. Massive search and rescue operations were launched instantly, covering literally thousands of square miles of ocean and land. But despite the massive scale of the operation, no wreckage was ever found.
There were no emergency signals and no survivors. Experts frantically analyzed every single possibility, right? Mechanical failure, terrorism, pilot error, severe weather phenomena, but absolutely none of those theories could explain the utter and complete lack of physical evidence.
There was nothing. The aircraft had simply vanished from the face of the earth. Hours turned into days, and days into weeks. Eventually, the agonizing wait ended. The massive search case was closed, the passengers were legally declared dead, and the world just moved on. Or at least, so everyone thought.
Part 3. 37 years later, the radar anomaly of 1992.
Fast forward to a completely different era of aviation. Inside a busy, highly modernized airport control tower, an immense 37-year gap of silence is abruptly broken. Flight 914 vanished in 1955, but suddenly, in 1992, an unidentified radar contact just appears out of thin air. No flight plan, no prior authorization, just a rogue aircraft slowly approaching. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer impossibility of the situation. Controllers desperately tried to make contact. Again and again, they called into the silence, until finally, a weak, crackling voice broke through the radio static. The pilot sounded incredibly confused, asking a single, stunning question. "Where are we?" The controllers quickly responded with the airport's name and location, but the pilot's voice immediately turned to pure panic. "No, that's impossible. We are flying in 1955. The entire modern control room fell into an eerie, chilled silence. Literally, nobody understood what was happening. Moments later, this impossible aircraft, an outdated relic from the mid-century, touched down safely on the tarmac.
Part 4. The impossible discovery. The world left behind.
Ground crews rushed the aircraft, obviously expecting a medical emergency or maybe a hijacking. But what they found instead was profoundly unsettling. A plane full of perfectly normal passengers who hadn't aged a single day. To them, only a few hours had passed. When investigators began processing them, the paperwork revealed something incredibly chilling. The 1992 arrival manifest was an exact match with the 1955 missing flight records. Every single name corresponded directly to someone who had been legally dead for almost 4 decades.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the psychological shock of that exact moment. It was profound. Think about it. These passengers expected to simply collect their luggage and continue their day. Instead, they stepped out to find armed officials surrounding their plane. They were immediately confronted by unrecognizable modern vehicles and bewildering new technology. The horrifying proof was literally everywhere. In the dates printed on the daily newspapers, the bizarre television broadcasts, and the ultimate, crushing realization that their children were now fully grown adults. Some even had grandchildren older than they looked. Many just broke down in tears, completely unable to process the world that had left them behind.
Part 5. Explaining the unexplained, Science and Theory.
In an effort to rationalize the totally impossible, the most prominent theory proposed by some researchers involves a wormhole. Basically, this is defined as a hypothetical opening in the fabric of space and time that causes severe, localized distortions. According to this hypothesis, that strange cloud the pilot saw in 1955, it was actually a spatial rift. The plane traveled right through this temporary distortion, meaning that while only a few terrifying minutes passed for the people inside the cabin, nearly 4 entire decades elapsed for the outside world.
Theory after theory was put forward. An atmospheric phenomenon, a magnetic anomaly, space-time distortion. But so the crucial point is the complete lack of evidence. None. Zero. Despite countless books written, documentaries produced, and extensive debates over the years, there is absolutely no hard, verifiable evidence that supports any of these scientific theories actually occurring.
Part 6. The Dark Secret. Cover-ups and Conspiracies.
Because when the public doesn't get clear answers, rumors rush in to fill the void. The whispers surrounding this incident suggest a massive, coordinated effort to bury the truth. Almost immediately after landing, it's claimed that passengers were isolated by shadowy government agencies. Rumors state they were interrogated and questioned for months on end, simply because they possessed experiential information that authorities deemed too dangerous for the public to know. And adding incredible fuel to the fire, their witness claims that the aircraft itself mysteriously disappeared again shortly after being secured. No official photographs were ever released to the press, no declassified records, just stories that refused to die, making the legend even stranger the deeper people dug.
So whether you believe Flight 914 actually slipped through a crack in the fabric of reality, or you view this as an elaborate modern urban legend that has just snowballed with every retelling, the story forces us to confront the unknown. It leaves us with one haunting question. What if time is not as fixed as we believe? It's a thought that kind of lingers every time we look up at the clouds, wondering if somewhere in that vast open sky, another lost flight is still out there, just waiting to come home. Thank you for joining me on this explainer.